When I mention the erased ending, the first thing you probably think of is this, and then the emotion you probably feel looks something like this. A big critique of the critically acclaimed anime/manga series is its ending. Erased masterfully built up a love story where the ending seemed clear, Kayo and Satoru getting together as adults. And then they got him with her! Alright, listen, this video is going to feature me breaking down why I think this ending could be looked at as good, and why I think it could be looked at as bad. And while sure, it was second best girl, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't down bad of seeing Kayo with that baby in her arms, knowing damn well it wasn't Satoru's. But that was just my initial reaction. How do I feel about this ending now? Well, today we're going to be looking at why people view this ending as good, and why people look at this ending as bad. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. Why do people hate this ending? In my opinion, a lot of the hatred towards this ending stems from people's emotional investment in the anime, rather than viewing it logically, which I'm not saying is a flaw at all. Emotional investment is an extremely important thing when viewing an anime or any other form of media. So let's break it down really quickly. A 29-year-old man seems to have everything against him. His life's in a rut, he works a poor job, and he just got framed for his own mother's murder. All this seems to stretch back to one thing: the murders of the 3 girls from Satoru's childhood. Satoru has this power that could only be described as a sense of deja vu, which allows him to interfere and change the course of events. Basically time travel. However, Satoru has no control over his power, and it seems to only activate in dire situations when he needs it the most. For example, right before being arrested for his mother's murder, Satoru traveled back to his 10-year-old self's body, keeping his current mind. This is his chance to change everything. Satoru is on a mission to solve and prevent the 3 horrible murders that took place in March. The first victim was one of Satoru's very own classmates known as Kayo. She's the victim the story focuses on the most. We see Satoru build a bond with Kayo, and he genuinely cares about keeping her safe. You notice a relationship building between the characters, and the whole thing is really wholesome. And wow, for 10 going on 11-year-old kids, these kids are mature. And I'm not talking just about Satoru, who's 29 mentally. Kayo talks about how a young woman would talk. So basically, Satoru notices that Kayo is being abused and tries to do everything in his power to help, even entrusting in his teacher, Mr. Yashiro. I'm not gonna run down everything that happens, but after a lot of trial and error, and even being sent back to the present at one point, Satoru saves Kayo, and Kayo gets taken away to live with her grandmother. This is where Satoru goes on to alter history a bit more, and saves all 3 of the murdered girls. Later, he noticed something seems off, and one of his classmates, Misato, has been noticeably quiet and isolated. He goes to help her and sees a suspicious van drive off in the direction that she went. Luckily, Mr. Yashiro was there to give him a ride and follow the car. A man who was a father figure to Satoru. Until the plot twist. After small clues and details left by the writers, which I'll touch up on more later, you almost fully have Yashiro's trust, despite some suspicious behavior that he's shown previously. All of this changes when he reveals his plans to Satoru. Yashiro drove his car into a lake with Satoru in it, attempting to end his life. But before he's fully submerged in the water, Satoru lets out a chilling statement that sticks with Yashiro for years. "I know your future." After this, we learn that Satoru is now a 25-year-old man, and his present timeline as a 25-year-old is now gone. Satoru had entered a 15-year coma, leaving him unable to do simple human tasks like walking upon waking up. Satoru's incredible mother spent all of the 15 years by her son's side, making sure that he's in the best possible shape he could be when he wakes up. And that brings us to the ending. During recovery, Kayo visits him and gets to see him for the first time in 15 years. This is surreal to Satoru since he knew that Kayo had never gotten a chance to live to be an adult in his original timeline, which brings him to tears. Kayo shows up holding a baby, and this is where a lot of people have their gripes at this ending. Never have I seen so many people unhappy for a woman who had just given birth. But if I'm being honest, this scene can be heartbreaking, especially after everything that everyone went through. All of that beautiful buildup just for the main love interest to get with the dude we all thought was a chick. I think it hurts more when you put yourself into Satoru's perspective. Imagine going back to age 10 as an attempt to fix the future and save lives, fall in love, save everyone, have everything seem good, then boom, coma! You're gone for 15 years and the girl you like just got with one of your friends. It's just pain. The story did such a good job building a relationship between Satoru and Kayo, just for that split-second reveal that she got with somebody else as the payoff. So yeah, that's why people dislike the ending. When inserting yourself into an anime for the most immersive experience, that's when you leave yourself open for the most vulnerability. We grow to really like these characters, and seeing everyone just kind of move on without you stings. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't make sense. First of all, it's a little bit ridiculous to hold a relationship you had at 11 at such a high value into your adult life. Were they responsible for kids? Absolutely, but Kayo was a child and got with a version of Satoru who was mentally a 29-year-old man. In Satoru's eyes as an 11-year-old boy again, I wouldn't be surprised if he did have a crush on Kayo, but I think more than anything, he just cared about keeping her safe. They were never old enough to really officially date, and they really only knew each other for about a week. Imagine if they did get together. Like, how would that even happen or make sense? Kayo just wastes 15 years of her life waiting for Satoru to wake up? Absolutely not, man. Just because Satoru saved her life doesn't mean she's obligated to eventually get with him. That's like saying just because one of your friends saves your life, mean you have to get into a romantic relationship with them. You're allowed to be grateful without having to show romantic interest. And maybe Kayo was in love with Satoru and it stayed that way for years, but she was still a child. Nobody keeps the same mentality and way of thinking from that age into adulthood. It's talked about how Kayo fell in love while Satoru was asleep and she didn't feel right getting into a relationship with somebody else while he wasn't around. But with the possibility that he may never wake up again, you need to move on with your life. And I know that Satoru didn't want to go and save Kayo's life just so she could waste it sitting around waiting for him. This is why he's happy for her in that final episode. He's just grateful that she's alive. After scripting this, I'm now on the side of the spectrum of people that believed Erase has a good ending. But we haven't gotten to the best part of it yet. I've only touched up on the reason people dislike it, so now let's jump into what makes this ending so great. The twist is done very well. Wow, did Erase do a good job of giving you a false sense of security. I made a mental note based off of animes I've seen in the past, but whenever suspicious things happen with a character that are notable, even by the main protagonist, the situation is examined just for the protagonist to change their mind and believe that the suspect is innocent. Watching this through the protagonist's point of view and the calmness of the music leads the viewer to a false sense of security, believing that everything is alright because in your head, this writes him off as a suspect. It's a really good and manipulative way of writing. As an example, let's take a look at the lollipop scene. Satoru and his mother are riding with the eventually revealed killer, Mr. Yashiro, when Satoru notices the bag of lollipops in the front seat. This usually wouldn't be too suspicious, however, due to the increased tension in the music and Yashiro himself, this makes the viewer far more tense, expecting a big reveal, carrying your emotions through a rising action, just to be hit with a silly climax ending, easing all of your tension. When Yashiro covers up his story talking about using sweets to help him quit cigarettes, and the comedic nature comes in fully and takes away any suspicion you had of him at that point. When a story intentionally builds up a character to be suspicious just for a comedic result, you start to take that character less seriously as a possible suspect. That's why the lollipop scene works so well. It gets you suspicious of the eventual killer just to immediately take all suspicion off and brush it off as a joke. And adding to that are the character's acceptance and understanding of the situation, and all of the help that Yashiro had given Satoru really just makes it look like there's no way it could be him. Even right before the climax, revealing Yashiro to be the murderer, it shows him having a lollipop in the hallway, leaving you with even more of a reason not to suspect him since he's backing up his claims about something that wasn't even a huge plot point. It feels so unnecessary to the point where it couldn't possibly contradict anything, but oh, it does. The twist is done masterfully, explaining the intentions of Yashiro and explaining his nature of why he murdered the little girls was caused by his brother, forcing him to help rape a little girl when he was just a child. The whole thing with Yashiro being so confused at how this little kid knew exactly where to be and what to do to stop his crimes makes him obsessed. Yashiro gets away with the attempted murder of Satoru and meets back up with him after he wakes up. He takes him to the rooftop, and on the way up, Satoru gets his memories back. They speak on the past and how Yashiro was obsessed to find out what Satoru meant by the statement, "I know your future." Usually a statement like that from a child would mean nothing, but when the child seemed to know your each and every move, it gave Yashiro a reason to believe him. As a form of revenge for foiling his plans, Yashiro attempts to murder a resident at the hospital, placing Satoru's fingerprints all over the crime scene. Yashiro told him that he would tell everyone Satoru's death was a suicide, and he was going to kill him. Satoru then goes to a specific spot of the building and attempts to fall off. This is where we see the final interaction between our pro and antagonist. Yashiro saves Satoru, admitting that he needed Satoru, and plans on joining Satoru in the suicide, proclaiming that his life is meaningless without him. This whole thing turned out to be a huge plan to catch Yashiro, with the viewers now realizing that Satoru got his memories back long before this moment. Having all of the evidence they needed, Yashiro was arrested. Everything about that ending was brilliant. The build-up, false hope, the twist, and the climax are done very well. The ending is extremely well written, so it's unfortunate that people look down on it as bad just because the people that seemed meant to be didn't get together. And yes, I was people. But I think a key part of my sadness for the ending came from me feeling bad for Satoru. Losing 15 years off your life and then having your loved ones move on. But if I'm being honest, Satoru got an extremely happy ending, and there's no reason to be sad for him. Satoru succeeds as a mangaka and even gets his own anime. He now excels at a job that he was fired to in his past due to a lack of drive, which really just goes to show how much the whole situation positively benefited him as a person. And yes, of course, in the end, he finally gets with Eri, which from a story perspective feels a little strange with very little build-up to their relationship, but I do like the realistic approach considering Eri was the only person he had a real bond with as an adult. So yeah, it makes sense, the storytelling is crafted masterfully, and our boy Satoru was happy. And people are willing to throw all of that away and say the ending is bad just because he didn't get the girl that he saved. Again, yes, I get it. The story felt like it was building up to it, but instead what we got was a more accurate representation of what would happen in real life. Erased isn't a love story. It covers murders and portrays a much more realistic atmosphere than many anime like it. Not to mention that the end makes sense and makes everyone happy. And that is why I think that Erased has a good ending. What do you think? Do you like or dislike the ending for another reason? Was there something that I missed? Be sure to let me know in the comments. I got more videos like these coming. In a week from now, you will be seeing Toradora Bridge episode 3, and then I got a couple more videos stacked after that. I hope you're enjoying the new style of content. I've been putting a lot of work into it, and all the support in the world will be really appreciated. So leave a like, subscribe with that bell, and maybe share it if you think this video is good and should be seen by more people. That's been me. Thank you all for watching. I apologize for sitting through. I've been JackTSS. Take it easy.